Robinson, do you agree with Ms. Gaines that there's a difference between women and men?
If the question is about trans women,
I'm just asking, is there a difference between women and men?
what I can say here is that the NCAA has rules in place. They've had rules in place for the last decade, and when this competition happened,
I'm going to try again.
the rules were clear.
Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? It's a yes/no question. Do you believe there's a difference?
Oh, I think that we're talking about this case with the NCAA.
No, I'm asking a question. Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? Most people could answer this very simply. I'm curious if you're willing to do so.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just putting it into the context of the conversation that we're having. I think that there are definitions related to sex.
Is that a yes? So I'm trying to get a yes or no.
A Senate hearing just turned into a heated showdown over women's sports, and what happened next left the room in total silence. A simple yes or no question turned into a moment no one could ignore. Is there a real difference between men and women in sports? And what happens when leaders won't give a straight answer? Let's break it down.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get a yes or no. I'm not trying to get a speech. Is there a difference between women and men?
I think that there are definitions for biological sex.
Okay, so you're not answering that. Let me ask you this question then. Why do women's sports exist? If you can't define a difference between women and men, why not abolish women's sports and just tell little girls to swim with little boys and see who wins?
Oh, I'm simply saying that that sex is
My
different
question,
than gender.
Why
and I do believe that women's sports have a great
exist?
value. I mean, Senator, I'll tell you right
Ms.
now.
Robinson, please answer the question I'm asking you.
Absolutely.
Why do women's sports exist?
I think that there are so many positive benefits to sports.
But
I mean,
why have a
we've talked
separate
about it here
category for
today.
women? If there's no difference between women and men, why to have women's sports?
I'm saying that there's a difference between sex and gender, and that the NCAA has rules in place, which they have for the last decade.
Mr. Chairman,
which
I would like to enter into the record an article from Duke Law called Comparing Athletic Performances for the Best Elite Women to Boys and Men. And it goes through examining in 2017 the top records for women in the world in various track and field events. So, for example, in the 100-meter, the top record for women in the world was 10.71 seconds. Now, that record for the number one woman in the world in 2017 was, in the year 2017, broken by 124 boys under 18. In that same year, the record for the number one competing woman in the 100-meter dash in the world was broken by a total of 2,474 men. If the radical Democrat agenda to destroy girls' sports and women's sports succeeds, little girls will not have a chance to compete. So I ask unanimous consent that this article be entered into the record.
Without objection. Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues,
I think participating in competitive sports is a wonderful thing for a young girl. I think it is a wonderful thing for a woman. And I think, unfortunately, today's Democrat Party has decided that women's sports and girls' sports no longer matters, and they're willing to push radical legislation designed to destroy girls' sports and women's sports. Ms. Gaines, I want to thank you for your courage. You are relatively young.
In a powerful and emotional Senate exchange, Ted Cruz raised a controversial issue that's been dominating headlines: the future of women's sports. He began by emphasizing the importance of Title IX, a law that helped create massive opportunities for female athletes across the United States. For decades, it's been the backbone of fairness and growth in women's competition. But Cruz argued that those protections are now under threat. At the center of the discussion was former collegiate swimmer Riley Gaines, who shared her personal experience competing against Leah Thomas during a major NCAA event. She described the moment they tied in a race, but only one trophy was available, and it wasn't given to her. According to Gaines, she was told that Thomas needed the trophy for photos, while she would go home without one. That moment, she said, highlighted a deeper issue about fairness in competition. Gaines went further, explaining that biological differences like lung capacity, height, and even airway size can create performance advantages that training alone can't overcome. Then came the turning point of the hearing. Cruz asked a simple question to another witness: is there a difference between men and women? But instead of a direct answer, the response shifted toward definitions of gender and existing NCAA policies. Cruz pressed again and again. Still no clear yes or no. That exchange quickly became the most talked about moment, not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't. Cruz then made a broader argument. If we can't clearly define the difference between men and women, how do we justify having separate categories in sports at all? Supporters of current policies point out that organizations like the NCAA have had rules in place for years to address inclusion, aiming to balance fairness with equal opportunity. But critics argue that those rules may not fully account for competitive differences, especially at elite levels. To reinforce his point, Cruz cited data suggesting that top female athletic records are often surpassed by large numbers of male athletes, even at younger ages. And that raises a bigger question. What defines fairness in modern sports? Is it inclusion at all costs? Or is it maintaining competitive balance based on biological differences? This debate isn't going away anytime soon. Because at its core, it's not just about sports. It's about identity, policy, and how society defines equality. So now it comes down to you. Where should the line be drawn? Let me know your thoughts below.